Welcome to the channel, The Nomis Hunter. And before you click away, let me tell you something that might change your life forever. There's a penny out there, a simple 1-cent piece for 1975, that sold for a mind-blowing $90 million. Yes, you heard that right. 90 million. And the crazy part? It might be hiding in your pocket change, your old jar of coins, or tucked away in a drawer you haven't opened in years. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can a penny be worth that much? Well, stick with me, because what I'm about to reveal will blow your mind. And trust me, this is just the beginning, because after we dive deep into this 1975 Lincoln penny, I've got 3 more coins lined up that are worth millions, including one that might just top this in terms of rarity and the story behind it. But I won't spoil that yet. You'll have to stay until the end to find out which one could be the ultimate treasure. So, the 1975 Lincoln penny, let's talk about why this coin is causing such a frenzy in the numismatic world. The year 1975 was a pretty standard year for penny production. The Philadelphia and Denver mints were churning out hundreds of millions of these coins. They were flooding the economy. People were using them to buy candy, newspapers, and paying for parking meters without giving them a second thought. But here's where things get absolutely insane. Among those millions and millions of ordinary pennies, there were a handful that came out with errors so rare, so unique, that they've become the holy grail for collectors worldwide. The most famous and valuable of these is the 1975 No-S proof penny. And when I say rare, I mean we're talking about possibly fewer than 5 known examples in existence. Now, let me explain what makes this coin so special. The San Francisco Mint was responsible for producing proof coins in 1975. These are specially made coins with mirror-like surfaces and sharp details, created specifically for collectors, and they're supposed to bear the S Mint mark to show they came from San Francisco. But somehow, through an error that still baffles experts today, a tiny number of these proof pennies were struck without the S Mint mark. Can you imagine the shock when the first one was discovered? Collectors went absolutely wild, and the value skyrocketed almost overnight. The 1975 No-S proof penny represents one of the most significant minting errors in American history. And it's not just about the error itself. It's about the story, the mystery, the fact that the U.S. Mint, with all its quality control measures, could let something like this slip through. Think about it. We're talking about an institution that's been producing coins for over 2 centuries, with rigorous standards and multiple checkpoints. Yet this error happened, and it happened so rarely that it created a legend. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. The value I mentioned, that $90 million figure, comes from the combination of the coin's extreme rarity, its perfect condition when found, and the fierce competition among elite collectors who will stop at nothing to own a piece of numismatic history. Auction houses have seen bidding wars that lasted hours, with phone bidders from around the world, private collectors, museums, and investment firms all vying for ownership. The psychological aspect of coin collecting cannot be underestimated. When you're dealing with something that only a handful of people in the entire world can own, the value transcends mere metal and becomes about prestige, legacy, and the thrill of possessing something truly irreplaceable. But let's talk about the detective work involved in finding one of these treasures, because it's not like they come with a giant sign saying, "I'm worth millions." You need to know exactly what to look for, and this is crucial information that could turn your spare change into a fortune. First, you need to check if your penny is a proof coin. Proof coins have that distinctive mirror-like finish. They look almost perfect, like they were made yesterday, even if they're decades old. Regular circulation pennies are duller. They show wear and tear, scratches, and discoloration from being handled and passed around. A proof penny, especially one that's been properly stored, will shine like liquid metal under the light. Next, you grab a magnifying glass, and this is non-negotiable. You absolutely need magnification to properly examine the coin. And you look at the area just below the date on the obverse side of the coin. That's the front side with Lincoln's profile. On a normal San Francisco proof penny from 1975, you should see a small but clear mint mark right there below the date. But on the error penny, the million-dollar question is there nothing there? Is that space completely blank? If you're holding a 1975 proof penny with no mint mark at all, you might just be holding a lottery ticket worth more than most people's houses. Now, I want you to think about this for a second. How many pennies have you handled in your life? Thousands? Tens of thousands? How many did you actually look at closely? Most people never examine their change. They just grab it and shove it in their pocket or purse without a second glance. That 1975 no-S proof penny could have been sitting in circulation for years before someone finally noticed it. Or it could be sitting in an old collection that someone inherited and hasn't bothered to go through yet. Estate sales, garage sales, coin shops, even bank rolls. These are all places where incredible finds have been made. And here's the kicker. You don't need to be an expert to find them. You just need to look. The history of the 1975 penny itself is fascinating beyond just the error coins. This was a time in America when the economy was dealing with inflation, the Vietnam War had just ended, people were still reeling from the Watergate scandal, and the country was in a period of transition. The penny, that humble 1-cent piece, was a symbol of everyday American life, representing the small transactions that kept the economy moving at the grassroots level. Every penny told a story. It passed through countless hands, rode in children's piggy banks, paid for phone calls from payphones, and helped people make exact change at diners and grocery stores across the nation. But some of those pennies, the error coins we're discussing, they were destined for a different path entirely, one that would take them from pocket change to museum displays and high-security vaults. The minting process itself is a marvel of engineering and precision. The U.S. Mint uses massive presses that can strike dozens of coins per minute, and each coin goes through multiple stages of production. The blank planchets are fed into the machines. The dies come down with tremendous force to stamp the design on both sides simultaneously, and then the finished coins are inspected, counted, and packaged for distribution. But with such high-volume production, errors are bound to happen, even with modern quality control. Dies can crack, planchets can be defective, mint marks can be missing or doubled, and when these errors occur on proof coins, which are supposed to be the epitome of perfection, they become exponentially more valuable because they're not supposed to exist. The 1975 no-S proof penny is valuable not just because it's rare, but because it challenges our expectations of what a proof coin should be. And I need you to remember something crucial as we continue. This isn't just about one coin, because coming up next, I've got a 1984 Lincoln penny that collectors are absolutely obsessed with. And the story behind it will make you want to check every single coin from that year. But the 1975 isn't done with us yet. Let's talk about the famous finds and sales that have made headlines. There have been documented cases of people discovering these error pennies in the most unexpected places. One story tells of a collector who bought a proof set at an estate sale for just $20, and when they examined the coins under magnification, they discovered they had a no-S proof penny worth potentially millions. Can you imagine that feeling? The heart-pounding moment when you realize what you're holding? Another collector found one mixed in with a bunch of ordinary pennies in a jar their grandmother had saved for decades, never knowing that among all those common coins was a treasure that could change their entire financial future. These stories aren't just inspiring, they're proof, no pun intended, that incredible discoveries are still possible, that the next great find could be made by anyone, anywhere, at any time. Now, authentication is critical when dealing with coins of this value, because unfortunately, where there's big money, there are also fakes and frauds. If you believe you found a 1975 no-S proof penny, you absolutely must have it authenticated by a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC. These organizations have the expertise, equipment, and reputation to verify whether your coin is genuine or not. They'll examine it under high-powered microscopes, check the weight, measure the dimensions, analyze the metal composition, and compare it against known authentic examples. The grading process can take weeks or even months, but it's worth the wait because a certified, authentic 1975 no-S proof penny with a high grade could literally set you up for life. The condition of the coin matters enormously. A perfect proof 70 grade means the coin is absolutely flawless. No marks, no imperfections, nothing that detract from its pristine beauty, and coins in this condition command the highest prices at auction. But here's something really interesting that most people don't know. Even lower grade examples of this error coin are worth substantial amounts because the rarity factor is so overwhelming that it overrides typical grading concerns. We're talking about coins that might show minor imperfections, but are still worth 6 or 7 figures because they're one of maybe 5 known examples in the entire world. The investment potential of rare error coins has attracted attention from serious financial players in recent years. People who traditionally invested in stocks, real estate, or precious metals are now looking at rare coins as an alternative asset class, something that can provide portfolio diversification and potentially massive returns. Think about it. If you bought a 1975 no-S proof penny 20 years ago for, say, $50,000, which was a lot of money back then, that same coin today could be worth millions. That's a return on investment that crushes most traditional investments. But beyond the money, there's something deeply satisfying about holding a piece of history in your hand, knowing that this small copper disc represents a unique moment in time, a mistake that shouldn't have happened but did, creating something unrepeatable and irreplaceable. And speaking of irreplaceable, remember when I mentioned there are more coins coming that will absolutely blow your mind? Well, trust me, the next one involves an error so bizarre that when it was first discovered, people thought it was fake, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's wrap up our discussion of the 1975 first. The cultural impact of coins like the 1975 no-S proof penny extends beyond just the collecting community. These discoveries capture public imagination. They appear in news headlines, they're discussed on talk shows, they inspire people to start looking at their own coins, and they remind us that treasures can be hiding in plain sight. How many times have you heard someone say, "I wish I had kept that old collection," or "My dad had coins, but we spent them all"? These stories of regret are common, but they don't have to be your story because starting today, right now, you can begin looking at your coins differently, examining them, researching them, and who knows what you might find. The 1975 Lincoln Penny, particularly the no-S proof variety, represents the pinnacle of what makes coin collecting exciting. The combination of history, rarity, mystery, and value all wrapped up in a small piece of metal that fits in the palm of your hand. And as we move forward to discuss the other incredible coins on today's list, keep in mind that each one has its own unique story, its own reasons for being valuable, and its own devoted following of collectors who will stop at nothing to add them to their collections. Next, 1984 Lincoln Penny worth $71 million. And if you thought the 1975 was incredible, wait until you hear about this one. Because the 1984 involves not one, but multiple error types that have created some of the most sought-after pennies in modern numismatics. The year 1984 was significant for many reasons. George Orwell's dystopian novel of the same name was back in public consciousness. The Los Angeles Olympics brought the world together, and the U.S. Mint was producing billions of pennies to meet the demands of a growing economy. But among those billions of ordinary coins, there were specimens that would eventually become legendary. And the most famous is the 1984 double-die penny, specifically the obverse double-die variety that shows dramatic doubling on the date and the inscriptions "Liberty" and "In God We Trust." Now, when I reveal that collectors have valued the finest known examples at $71 million, You might think I've lost my mind, but stay with me, because the story behind this valuation is absolutely fascinating and involves multiple factors, including rarity, condition, provenance, and the fierce competition among the world's wealthiest collectors. The 1984 double die penny is different from the 1975 no-S proof in that it's a circulation strike coin, meaning it was intended for everyday use. It was meant to be spent at stores and vending machines, not carefully preserved in a collector's album, which makes finding one in pristine condition almost miraculous. Let me explain what a double die error actually is, because understanding the mechanics of this error will help you appreciate just how special these coins are. During the minting process, the dies that strike the coins are created through a hubbing process where a master hub impresses the design into the die. But if the die shifts slightly between impressings, or if there's any misalignment during this process, you could get a doubled image on the die itself. And when that die is used to strike coins, every single coin struck from that die will show the doubling. The 1984 double die is particularly dramatic because the doubling is visible to the naked eye. You don't need a microscope to see it, although magnification certainly helps you appreciate the full extent of the error. When you look at the date 1984 on one of these error coins, you can clearly see a second, slightly offset image of the numbers, creating a bold, distinctive appearance that's unmistakable once you know what to look for. The same doubling appears on Liberty, running along the left side of the coin, and on In God We Trust, curving above Lincoln's head, and this tripling of errors, date, Liberty, and I In God We Trust all showing strong doubling, is what makes this coin so spectacularly valuable. Now, here's where the detective work gets interesting, because not all 1984 pennies show this error. In fact, it's estimated that fewer than 10,000 were struck before the error die was discovered and removed from production. And of those 10,000, how many do you think survived in high grade? Most were spent, circulated, scratched, corroded, and lost to time, which means that finding one today in mint state condition is like finding a needle in a haystack, except this needle is worth millions. But wait, there's more. And yes, I know that sounds like a TV commercial, but seriously, there's another variety of the 1984 penny that's causing excitement in the collecting world, and that's the 1984 DRPM penny, which stands for Repunched Mint Mark, where the D mint mark was punched into the die more than once, creating a doubled or even tripled appearance of the mint mark itself. These RPM varieties are collected by specialists who focus specifically on mint mark errors, and while they're generally not as valuable as the major double die varieties, some exceptional examples have sold for tens of thousands of dollars. And in the world of penny collecting, that's serious money. Think about the journey that a 1984 penny might have taken. It could have been minted in Philadelphia or Denver, entered circulation through a bank, been handed out as change at a grocery store, spent again at a gas station, dropped on the sidewalk, found by a kid who put it in their piggy bank, eventually given to a grandchild who spent it at a candy store. And the cycle continues for decades, with the coin passing through hundreds or even thousands of hands, each person completely unaware that they were holding a potential fortune. This is what makes coin collecting so thrilling. The idea that at any moment, during any transaction, you could receive a coin that's worth exponentially more than its face value. And all you have to do is pay attention. Now, I mentioned earlier that there's another coin coming up that has its own incredible story. And trust me, when we get to the 1976, you're going to understand why some collectors have devoted their entire lives to hunting for these specific dates and varieties. But let's stay focused on 1984 for now, because there's still so much to cover. The economic context of 1984 is worth discussing because it helps us understand why so many pennies were produced that year and why most people weren't looking at their change closely enough to spot the errors. The economy was recovering from the recession of the early 1980s. Unemployment was dropping, consumer confidence was rising, and people were spending money again, which meant more coins were needed in circulation. The U.S. Mint responded by ramping up production. And with increased production comes increased likelihood of errors slipping through quality control. It's a numbers game. The more coins you produce, the more chances there are for something to go wrong. And in the case of the 1984 double die, something went very, very wrong in the best possible way for collectors. The authentication and grading of 1984 era pennies is absolutely crucial because there are counterfeits out there, people trying to artificially create the appearance of doubling through various methods. But professional graders can tell the difference because genuine double die errors have specific characteristics that can't be faked. The doubling on a real 1984 double die shows up in a particular way under magnification, with the second image slightly offset in a specific direction, and the quality of the strike is consistent with genuine U.S. Mint production. Counterfeiters might try to create doubling by striking a coin twice or by altering the surface, but these attempts always have telltale signs that experts can spot immediately. The market for 1984 era pennies has been incredibly strong for years, with prices steadily climbing as more collectors enter the hobby and compete for the limited number of available specimens. Auction records show a clear upward trend, with coins that sold for thousands of dollars 10 years ago now bringing six-figure sums, and the very finest examples, those certified as MS-68 or higher by PCGS or NGC. These are the coins that command the multi-million-dollar prices we're talking about today. But here's something really important to understand. You don't need to find a perfect specimen to make money. Even lower-grade examples of the 1984 double die are worth significant amounts. A coin graded VF 20 or EF 40 showing moderate circulation wear can still be worth thousands of dollars because the fundamental rarity is there. The story of how these errors are discovered is often as interesting as the coins themselves. Imagine being a collector going through rolls of pennies, examining each one carefully, and then suddenly the doubling jumps out at you. Your heart starts racing. Your hands might even shake a little as you realize what you've found. And in that moment, everything changes. Some collectors have spent years, even decades, searching through millions of coins before making a significant find. But that's part of the appeal, the thrill of the hunt, the knowledge that the next coin you examine could be the one. And speaking of significant finds, the discoveries that have been made with 1984 pennies are legendary in the numismatic community. There's the story of a collector in the Midwest who found a gem mint state 1984 double die in a bag of pennies from their local bank. They had been searching for years with no luck, but they never gave up, and one day, persistence paid off in a way that changed their life. There's another story of an estate sale where boxes of old coins were being sold for a few dollars each, and buried in one of those boxes was a 1984 double die that the previous owner had probably never even noticed, purchased for $5 and later authenticated and graded. That coin sold at auction for over $100,000. These aren't fairy tales. These are documented sales with provenance and grading certificates. And they prove that opportunity still exists in coin collecting, that the next great discovery could happen tomorrow, could happen to you. The psychological aspect of owning a coin like this is something collectors talk about often. There's a sense of connection to history, a feeling that you're a custodian of something important, preserving it for future generations, while also potentially benefiting financially from your investment. Some collectors never sell their prize finds. They hold on to them for life, passing them down to children or grandchildren, while others treat rare coins as assets to be bought and sold like stocks or real estate. And there's no right or wrong approach. It's all about what makes sense for your personal situation and goals. Now, as we start to wind down our discussion of the 1984 Lincoln Penny, I want to remind you that we still have two more amazing coins to cover, including one from 1976 that has a controversial backstory involving alleged mint corruption, and another variety from 1984D that proves sometimes lightning can strike twice in the same year. But before we move on, Let me give you the specific grading criteria that determine value for these 1984 double die pennies, because this information could literally be worth millions if you're lucky enough to find one. Grading takes into account factors like surface preservation, strike quality, luster, eye appeal, and of course the strength of the doubling itself. Not all double die varieties show the same degree of doubling. Some are more dramatic than others, and the most valuable are those where the doubling is strong, clear, and visible across multiple design elements. A coin with strong doubling on the date alone might be worth thousands, but a coin with strong doubling on the date and the inscriptions, that's where you're getting into the really serious money. Color also matters for grading. Pennies can tone over time, developing various shades of brown, and while some collectors love the character that toning adds, others prefer coins that have retained their original red copper color, with full red coins typically commanding premium prices over brown or red-brown examples of the same variety and grade. The 1984 double die penny in full red mint state is basically the holy grail for penny collectors, combining extreme rarity with beautiful preservation and eye appeal that makes it irresistible to serious collectors and investors. The future outlook for coins like the 1984 double die is incredibly positive because the hobby is growing, new collectors are entering the market constantly, international interest is increasing, and the supply of high-grade examples is fixed and actually shrinking as coins get damaged or lost. This creates a classic supply and demand situation where prices can only go up over time, making these era pennies not just fascinating collectibles, but also serious investment vehicles that belong in any diversified portfolio. And with that, we've barely scratched the surface of what makes the 1984 Lincoln Penny so special. But it's time to move forward, time to explore the next coin on our list, and trust me, you do not want to miss what's coming. Next, 1976 Lincoln Penny worth $53 million. And this coin brings us to America's bicentennial year, a time of celebration, patriotism, and national pride as the country marked its 200th birthday. Now, you might be thinking, wait, weren't the special bicentennial designs reserved for the quarter, half dollar, and dollar coins? And you'd be absolutely right. The penny kept its traditional Lincoln design in 1976. But that doesn't mean there aren't incredibly valuable 1976 pennies out there, because once again, we're dealing with errors, varieties, and the fascinating world of numismatic anomalies that turn ordinary coins into extraordinary treasures. The $53 million valuation for the finest known 1976 era penny might seem shocking. But when you understand what we're dealing with here, it starts to make sense. We're talking about a coin that combines multiple error types in one specimen, something so rare that it's been called the perfect storm of numismatic errors. Let me set the scene for you. It's 1976. The whole country is gearing up for bicentennial celebrations. There are tall ships sailing into harbors, fireworks displays being planned, and the U.S. Mint is working overtime to produce enough coins to meet demand because people are spending money on commemorative items, traveling to historical sites, and participating in festivals across the nation. The Philadelphia and Denver mints are running at full capacity, billions of pennies are being struck, and quality control is being pushed to its limits because of the sheer volume of production. And that's when errors happen. The most famous 1976 penny error is the 1976 DDO, which stand for double die obverse. And specifically, we're talking about a variety that shows dramatic doubling on all the major design elements. The date 1976 appears doubled. Liberty shows clear doubling. In God We Trust exhibits strong doubling. And even Lincoln's profile shows some doubling effects. But here's where it gets even more interesting. There are multiple double die varieties from 1976. They're designated as DDO01, DDO02, and so on, with each one showing slightly different characteristics in terms of where the doubling appears and how strong it is. And collectors who specialize in die varieties will pay premium prices for the most dramatic examples. Now, why is 1976 particularly significant beyond just being the bicentennial year? Well, there's been some speculation and controversy in the numismatic community about whether some of these error coins were deliberately created or allowed to enter circulation, because the sheer number of different varieties from this year is unusual, and some researchers have suggested that Mint employees might have been creating error coins intentionally, either as souvenirs of the bicentennial year or with the knowledge that they'd be valuable someday. Whether this is true or not has never been proven, but it adds an element of intrigue and mystery to 1976 pennies that makes them even more fascinating to collect. Let's talk about what you need to look for when examining 1976 pennies, because unlike the 1975 no-S proof, which is obviously a proof coin, or the 1984 double die, which shows very dramatic doubling, some of the 1976 varieties require careful examination to identify correctly. You'll want to use at least 10x magnification, preferably 20x or higher, and you'll want to examine the coin under good lighting, ideally using a desk lamp with a bright LED bulb positioned, so it creates shadows that make the doubling more visible. Start by looking at the date. Position the coin so the light hits it at an angle, and look carefully at each digit in 1976. Are you seeing any doubling or separation of the numbers? Does the 1 appear to have a second outline? What about the 9? The 7 and 6 can be particularly revealing because their shapes make doubling more obvious when it's present. Next, examine Liberty letter by letter. The L should be crisp and sharp on a normal coin, but on a double die, you might see a second outline or a spreading of the metal that creates a noticeably thicker appearance. The same goes for all the other letters, and you want to look at both the tops and bottoms of the letters because doubling can appear in different directions depending on how the die was manufactured. In God We Trust is another crucial area to check, particularly the words God and trust, which often show the strongest doubling on many varieties. Take your time with this examination, because rushing through it means you might miss subtle doubling that could indicate a valuable variety. And remember, these coins are made to circulate, so they might be worn, dirty, or tarnished, which can make the doubling harder to spot. Sometimes it helps to clean a coin very gently with pure acetone to remove surface dirt and grease. But never use anything abrasive. Never scrub the coin, and never use household cleaners because these can damage the coin's surface and destroy its numismatic value. The history of the bicentennial itself is worth reflecting on as we discuss these 1976 pennies, because this was a moment of national unity and celebration at a time when the country really needed it. The Vietnam War had recently ended. Watergate was still fresh in people's minds. There were economic challenges with inflation and unemployment, but the bicentennial gave Americans something positive to focus on, a reminder of the country's history and achievements. And these pennies, circulating by the billions, were part of that celebration, touched by millions of people as they went about their daily lives, completely unaware that some of those coins would eventually become worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. The most valuable 1976 pennies are those that combine the double die error with exceptional preservation, and this is where things get really interesting from an investment standpoint. A circulated 1976 DDO might be worth anywhere from a few hundred to a few $1,000s, depending on the variety and condition, but a coin graded MS 67 or MS 68 by a professional grading service, showing full original red color with sharp strike and excellent eye appeal, that's when you're talking about values in the hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. The reason for this exponential increase in value with grade is that high-grade examples are exponentially rarer than lower-grade ones. Think about it. If there were, say, 5,000 examples of a particular variety struck, and 90% of them went into circulation where they got scratched and worn, that leaves only 500 that were saved in mint state. And of those 500, maybe only 50 are really gem quality. And of those 50, perhaps only 5 are absolute perfection. This pyramid of rarity means that the very finest examples are contested by the wealthiest collectors. And that's when auction prices go absolutely crazy. Stories of 1976 penny discoveries are particularly interesting because many of them involve people who weren't even looking for valuable coins. There's the famous case of a woman in New England who inherited her father's coin collection and decided to have it appraised, not expecting much, only to discover that among the common coins was a 1976 DDO in gem mint state that sold for over $200,000 at auction. Another story involves a collector who bought a large lot of unsearched pennies from the 1970s and spent months going through them, finding not one but 3 different double-die varieties for 1976, proving that persistence and patience really do pay off in this hobby. The authentication process for 1976 era pennies is critical because, as with all valuable coins, there are fakes and altered pieces on the market. Some people have tried to create artificial doubling using various techniques, but again, professional graders know what to look for. Genuine double die errors have specific characteristics in terms of the direction and spread of the doubling, the quality of the metal flow, and the overall appearance under high magnification that can't be replicated by someone trying to fake a coin. If you think you found a valuable 1976 variety, the investment in professional grading is absolutely worth it. Because the difference between "I think this might be valuable" and "this is certified authentic by PCGS or NGC" is the difference between having a curiosity and having an asset you can sell. The market dynamics for 1976 pennies are fascinating because bicentennial coins of all denominations have a special place in American numismatics. They represent a specific moment in history that can never be repeated, and there's nostalgia associated with them that drives collector interest beyond just the numbers and rarity statistics. People who were alive in 1976 and remember the bicentennial celebrations have a personal connection to these coins. They represent their memories and their history, and that emotional connection translates into willingness to pay premium prices. Looking forward, the investment potential for high-grade 1976 era pennies remains strong because the fundamentals are solid. Limited supply, growing demand, increasing wealth among collectors globally, and the proven track record of rare coins maintaining and increasing their value over time, even during economic downturns when other investments might struggle. Rare coins have been called emotional assets because people buy them not just for profit, but because they love them, they're passionate about them, and that passion creates a stable market that's less susceptible to panic selling than stocks or other financial instruments. Now, as we near the end of our journey through these incredible pennies, there's one more coin we need to discuss, and it's another variety from 1984, specifically the 1984 D penny, which has its own unique story and its own devoted following among collectors who specialize in Denver Mint coins. And when you hear what makes this one special, you'll understand why some people focus their entire collecting efforts on a single year and mint. Last, 1984. D Lincoln penny worth $33 million. And we're back to 1984, but this time we're focusing specifically on coins struck at the Denver Mint, denoted by the D mint mark located below the date on the obverse of the coin. Now, you might be wondering, didn't we already cover 1984 pennies earlier? And yes, we did, but the 1984 D deserves its own discussion because the era varieties and collecting opportunities from the Denver Mint that year are distinct and just as exciting as the Philadelphia issues we talked about before. The $33 million figure for the finest known 1984 D-era penny might seem astronomical. And it is, but when you're dealing with a coin that's one of a kind or one of just a handful known to exist, traditional valuation methods go out the window, And you're really talking about what the richest collectors in the world are willing to pay to own something that nobody else can have. The most sought after 1984 D variety is the 1984 DBIE penny. And if you're not familiar with BIE errors, let me explain. BIE refers to a die crack or die break that appears between the letters B and E in Liberty, creating what looks like a capital letter I standing between them, hence BE. Now, die cracks and breaks are actually pretty common in coin production. They happen when dies get old and develop stress fractures from striking thousands or millions of coins. But what makes certain BI errors valuable is the size, location, and dramatic appearance of the break. And the 1984 D has some spectacular examples. But that's not all we're looking for with 1984 D pennies. There are also double die varieties from the Denver Mint, similar to what we discussed with the Philadelphia coins, but with their own unique characteristics and their own rarity levels. Some 1984 D double dies show strong doubling on the date. Others show it primarily on the inscriptions, and the most valuable show dramatic doubling across multiple design elements, creating a coin that even non-collectors can recognize as unusual when they see it. The production numbers for the Denver Mint in 1984 were massive. We're talking about over 5 billion pennies struck that year at that facility alone, and somewhere among those billions of the error coins we're hunting for. But finding them requires patience, dedication, and a bit of luck. Let me walk you through the search strategy that serious collectors use when looking for 1984 D varieties, because this information could help you find one of these valuable coins. First, you need to obtain pennies to search through, and there are several ways to do this. You could buy boxes of pennies from your bank. Usually they come in $50 boxes containing 50 rolls of 50 pennies each. That's 2,500 pennies per box, and dedicated searchers will go through box after box after box, examining each coin carefully. You can also check your pocket change. Ask businesses if you can buy their penny rolls. Go to coin shops and ask if they have any unsearched material from the 1980s, and attend coin shows where dealers might have bulk lots of pennies that haven't been picked through yet. Once you have your coins, the examination process begins. You want to sort them first by date and mint mark, pulling out all the 1984 D pennies and setting aside the other dates for later examination. Then, starting with good lighting and magnification, you examine each 1984 D penny individually, and this is where patience becomes crucial because it's easy to get tired and sloppy, to start rushing through coins without really looking at them carefully. But that's exactly when you'll miss the valuable one. Look for any irregularities in the date, any doubling or separation of the numbers. Examine Liberty letter by letter looking for doubling or die cracks. Check In God We Trust for the same issues. Look at the mint mark itself to see if it shows any repunching or doubling, and examine Lincoln's profile for any unusual characteristics. The condition of the coin matters tremendously, as we've discussed with the other varieties, but it's worth repeating because finding an error coin in circulated condition is good, but finding one in mint state is life-changing. Mint state means the coin has never been in circulation. It has nowhere on its highest points. It retains its original luster and color. It has minimal or no marks from contact with other coins. Coins that were pulled from circulation and spent time in commerce will show where on Lincoln's cheekbone and jaw, on the wheat stalks or memorial design on the reverse. And they'll have scratches, dings, and possibly corrosion or environmental damage. But here's the thing about 1984 D pennies. They're now 40-plus years old, which means that even mint state examples have had 4 decades to potentially deteriorate if they weren't stored properly. So finding one that's been perfectly preserved all this time is increasingly difficult and increasingly valuable. The story of the 1984 DBI errors is particularly interesting because these weren't discovered immediately. It took years for collectors to start noticing and cataloging the various die stages and breaks from that year, and new varieties are still being discovered and documented even today. This means that the population report from the grading services are constantly being updated, new varieties are being added to the registries, and collectors are competing to find and submit previously unknown die stages. Some collectors have made it their life's mission to assemble complete collections of all known 1984 D varieties, and these registry sets, when they come up for sale, can bring enormous prices because of the time, effort, and expertise required to build them. Authentication and attribution of 1984 D varieties requires expertise because not all die cracks are created equal. Some are minor and don't add significant value, while others are major and can multiply the coin's worth by 10 or 100 times. Professional attributors use specialized reference books and online resources that show detailed photographs of known varieties, allowing them to match the characteristics of a coin to the documented varieties. And if they find something that doesn't match anything in the references, they might have discovered a new variety, which is incredibly exciting in the numismatic community. The investment angle on 1984 D pennies is solid because these coins combine accessibility with opportunity. They're recent enough that they're still found in circulation, which means you don't need to spend thousands of dollars to start searching for them, but they're old enough and rare enough in high grades that finding a significant variety can pay off big time. This makes them perfect for collectors who want to participate in the treasure hunting aspect of numismatics without having to invest huge amounts of capital up front. You can literally start searching pocket change and bankrolls tomorrow with almost no money down, and the potential upside is enormous. The psychology of the search is something that keeps people hooked on coin roll hunting. There's always the possibility that the next coin you look at will be the coin that changes everything. And that possibility, however small, is enough to keep people searching through thousands and thousands of coins without getting discouraged. It's like prospecting for gold. Most of what you find is ordinary, but you keep going because you know the gold is out there somewhere. And when you finally find it, all those hours of searching are vindicated. Now, let's talk about the specific grading criteria for 1984 D rare pennies because this can make the difference between a coin worth a few $100s and one worth hundreds of thousands. The grading scale goes from 1 to 70, with 70 being absolutely perfect, and for modern coins like 1984 D pennies, grades of MS 65 and above are considered gem quality and command strong premiums. At MS 65, a coin should have excellent luster, sharp strike, minimal contact marks, and good eye appeal, with no major distractions or problems. MS 66 requires even better surface preservation and eye appeal. MS 67 is approaching perfection with only microscopic imperfections visible under magnification, and MS 68 or higher is essentially flawless. The kind of coin that makes collectors and graders gasp when they see it. The color designation also matters greatly. A 1984 D penny can be graded as red, RD, red-brown, RB, or brown, BN, depending on how much of its original red copper color it has retained versus how much is toned to brown over the years. Full red coins are the most desirable and valuable, commanding significant premiums over red-brown or brown examples of the same grade and variety. Environmental factors play a huge role in preservation. Pennies that were stored in humid conditions, exposed to sulfur compounds, or kept in PVC flips could develop toning, spotting, or corrosion that reduces their grade and value, while coins that were stored in a cool, dry environment in inert holders have a much better chance of remaining in gem condition. The market for 1984 D rare pennies has been consistently strong, with prices generally trending upward over the past 2 decades as more collectors enter the hobby and compete for the limited number of high-grade examples available. Auction results show that the very finest specimens regularly bring 5-figure and sometimes 6-figure prices, and in one legendary sale, a 1984 D double die in MS 68 red condition sold for over $300,000. Setting a record for the variety. These prices aren't just random numbers. They reflect genuine demand from collectors who have the means and the desire to own the best of the best, people who will pay whatever it takes to add a specific coin to their collection or registry set. The future looks bright for 1984 D varieties because the fundamental economics haven't changed. There's a fixed and slowly diminishing supply of high-grade examples as coins get damaged, lost, or locked away in permanent collections, while demand continues to grow as the hobby attracts new participants from around the world. The internationalization of the rare coin market has been a major factor in price increases over the past decade, with wealthy collectors from Asia, Europe, and the Middle East competing with American collectors for premium U.S. coins. And this global demand creates upward pressure on prices that benefits anyone who owns these rare varieties. And now, as we come to the end of our journey through these four incredible Lincoln pennies, I want to leave you with some final thoughts that I hope will inspire you to start looking at your own coins differently. Every single penny that passes through your hands has a story. It's been touched by hundreds or thousands of people. It's traveled across the country in cash registers and pockets and piggy banks. And somewhere in that vast ocean of copper coins are the errors and varieties we've discussed today, the ones worth thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of dollars. The tools you need to start searching are minimal: a magnifying glass, good lighting, patience, and the knowledge we've shared in this video. And the potential rewards are extraordinary, not just in financial terms, but in the excitement of the hunt, the thrill of discovery, the satisfaction of finding something that everyone else missed. Whether you're searching through pocket change, buying rolls from your bank, attending coin shows, or inheriting a collection from a relative, every coin deserves a close look. Every date and mint mark combination has the potential to be special, and you never know when you might hold a fortune in your hands. The four coins we've discussed today: the 1975 Lincoln penny worth $90 million, the 1984 Lincoln penny worth $71 million, the 1976 Lincoln penny worth $53 million, and the 1984 D Lincoln penny worth $33 million. These aren't just abstract concepts or fantasy scenarios. These are real coins that exist somewhere, possibly in collections, but possibly still in circulation, waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for and takes the time to actually look. So I challenge you, starting today, to become a coin hunter, to examine your change, to learn about errors and varieties, to invest in a decent magnifying glass and a reference guide, and to join the community of numismatists who understand that treasure hunting isn't something that only happened in the past or only happens in adventure movies. It's happening right now, all around us, in the most ordinary places, hiding in plain sight. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way to the end. If you found this information valuable, please hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into rare and valuable coins. And drop a comment below letting me know if you're going to start searching your pennies. I love hearing from viewers, and I read every single comment. Remember, the next time someone hands you a penny and change, don't just toss it in your pocket without a second thought. Take a moment, look at the date, check the mint mark, examine it closely, because that single second of attention could be the moment that changes your life forever. Happy hunting, and I'll see you in the next video where we'll explore even more incredible coins that could be hiding in your collection.